Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Costa Rica Crypto. And today I have the honor and the pleasure of speaking to Mr. Douglas Horn, who is the founder of Telos. And I want to just say hi and I want to welcome you, and kind of to kick it off, I like to dig a little bit into people's backgrounds. First thing I did was checked out your LinkedIn. I noticed that it's not your first job in the space, Douglas. Can you give us kind of a summation of where you came from, and then kind of where you got bit by the crypto bug and how it brought you to where you are today?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be on the show. So honored to be in the company of all the other people you're talking to. I want to do one little correction. I'm the white paper author for Telos. I'm not the founder. You know, it'd be very hard, I think, to have somebody called a founder of something that's so closely adheres to EOS itself. I also, and we can maybe talk about this later, sometimes I think that founders might be one of the problems with crypto, and we might be better if we spend a little less time on founders. But I am the white paper author, and we have many founders who are working to launch Telos. So like a lot of folks, I actually started out mining on like just an idle computer that I had long enough ago that you could do that, I guess. And it grew into, you know, it's consuming. To anyone who's done that, it's, you know, you start thinking about it and how you can get how you can get a graphics card. And so I had had a lot of enthusiasm and a little bit of resources there. And I just kept building on that, and I expanded, you know, into a decent sized proof of work mining operation, and then some into like proof of stake and like things like Darkcoin, which is now Dash, and I was enjoying that. It was fun. I would do a little trading and stuff like that. But deep down, I was always waiting around for the cool shit that Andreas Antonopoulos was talking about in his TED Talks. And it's like, when is this actually going to get built? And then I came to a realization that it was going to get built when somebody said, I'm going to stop waiting around for it and start building it. And so I brought together some really talented people, and we just started really small, building some stuff. So that's kind of how I got into it.
Cool. I love it. And I totally respect what you're saying about the founder thing. I get it. And I think that's kind of a cool way to go about it. I guess we had kind of a pre-talk, and when I was creeping your LinkedIn, as I always do, I noticed that you've done a lot of work in media. And one of kind of the things that we talked about was the way that no skill that you learn in your lifetime has not contributed to where you are today. What would you say, if anything, some of the skills that you've learned either in media or in your previous involvement with cryptocurrencies that kind of surprise you? You've got some really, really good utility out of while doing your life work right now.
Yeah. Well, one thing that surprises me is I've been training this my whole life. I just didn't know it. You know, like a lot of people in crypto, I actually kind of did a lot of different things, kind of creative areas. I wrote some novels. I wrote some sorts of computer programming books. I was a magazine writer and back for computer programming magazines when such a thing actually existed, right? On paper, no less. For several years, though, for the last few decades, anyways, I made my living as a writer, director, producer on film and television and video projects, and that's been an education. I was also a game inventor for some high-end, you know, big game places that you might have heard of, just as a producer and inventor for those, and so that taught me a lot of things. I guess the skill that I learned most from the media business was delayed gratification. Okay. And I think that's paying off. I think from directing, sharing your vision and trusting your vision and getting other people to buy into it has been a really expensive, sometimes a really important experience. And figuring out how to keep people inspired and organized on a project when they're not necessarily getting paid or not getting their rate or whatever. That is without losing focus. That's an important skill that we're applying to Telos. I mean, no one's getting, mostly people aren't getting paid. The people on my staff, a few people on staff are getting paid, but the people who are paying them are not getting paid, right? So we're either keeping individuals going on the project, or we're keeping the few employers who are super into the project continuously excited about it, so that they are keeping the people on the project, which is what we need, because we're biting off a lot, and we need the 75 plus contributors that we have right now. We need more, right? So those are good skills that help me.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely. We're gonna dig into the project here in a couple of seconds, but I always like to ask people, because I think people want to know. And once again, going back to your LinkedIn, I noticed you've got a ton of sailing. Know that you were into wrestling when you were younger, which is similar to some of my other interests.
Wow. Yeah. We don't talk about that a lot. Yeah. But I'm glad you did. That's cool. So way back when, I was kind of really fortunate to be a member of the on the Pac-10 Championship USC sailing team. So it's kind of cool shocking to me to ever think that I was actually a Pac-10 champion athlete. That was a long time ago. In high school, I was also on a championship wrestling team. But here's the thing: those teams, the reality is those teams had so much talent that they would have done it without me. So kind of on wrestling, I just, the coach would just say, just don't get pinned and we'll win this match. And on the sailing thing, I think I just had to not fall out of the boat and we would have won. So the rest is so great. So I don't want to overstate my contribution,
Parts that I was particularly good at. I was on the volleyball team and I was terrible, but we won the provincial championship. I mean, I think I played a game, but I was there, so it counted, right?
Yeah, you were right there. You were right there with them. That's kind of me, adjacent. Yes.
All right, yeah. Let's move on to maybe the more important stuff and kind of what we sat down to talk about today. What exactly is Telos, and what's kind of the simplified description of the project?
Okay, simplified is not my strong suit, known to go long, so sorry about that. So Telos is a new blockchain that's based on EOSIO open source software, and we're doing a really significant amount of work on both on the code side and on the governance side to try and do sort of like a 2.0 version of the EOS launch, right? And actually, almost everyone, most of the core people on this, at least in the beginning, had all been VPs working on the launch for weeks or months. So governance-wise, we think it's important to kick off the network with all the parts, right? The ratification, work proposals, and we've made a commitment that we are not going to launch it without that, right? So we've announced our time frame when we're going to start voting, but instead of this being like a NASA countdown where you focus on the number that you reach, it's going to be one of those countdowns where you actually focus on the life support, go, fuel systems, go, weather, go. Like everything has to line up. So we'll have more of a checklist method of doing this, and people are going to know that it's ready to go. It won't come as a surprise because we want to give all those governance parts. Code-wise, there were some things in EOS that really don't work still the way we kind of wish they did, or we thought they did, or we're told they did. And so we're trying to make EOS what we kind of all thought it was going to be. And so some of that on the code side is that we're increasing network security by doing things like rotating the BPs, the standby BPs, to actually make sure every week that they can actually produce, which is not done that's kind of an easy miss, I think. And we also take out VPs that aren't actually producing after 30 minutes. So a lot of these things are, basic code network security improvements. And then there's just a tokenomics improvement, which is pretty big, right? Which is, so mostly Mostly Telos is, we're trying to take all the great advantage of EOS, but also give most of the people a voice that actually has meaning in the governance, right? So, I mean, EOS is amazing, right? So, and it's a tech, I really believe it's going to change the world. But it's a DPoS, it's a voting-based system, and 99% of the people's votes don't matter at all. And I don't think that's sustainable. So that's one of the things we're trying to solve. Fortunately, the only way you can really solve that for us is, or maybe it's just the easiest way. Maybe I'm taking the easy way, but the easiest way to solve that is to change the tokenomics. And so we're trying to do that, change the hyper concentrated voting with doing as little harm as possible to the people who put a lot of effort, put a lot of value into launching EOS. We're not taking EOS, we're giving everybody Telos, and we're just giving some people less, and we're trying to still honor the fact that they had a big role in getting EOS off the ground. So we're essentially doing the EOS, but we're taking any account over 40,000, and we're capping at 40,000, which is amazingly just 0.67% of all accounts. So, but it changes. But those 0.67% of all accounts control over or around 3/4 of all the EOS. So we're fixing that.
It was kind of funny. We talked a little bit about this in the pre-talk, and you guys kind of launched the project and started promoting it at a time which was relatively early, and the consensus about sidechains in the community was not so good. And I see that really changing over the last little while, and I'm glad that it is, quite frankly, because I think there's definitely a need for other chains, and I don't see any negativity with that. But what I do see, and what we kind of talked about, is I see a world, whether it be in a year or 2 years, where we have hundreds of sidechains kind of doing their own thing, serving their own purpose. Where do you see the advantages of what you're doing with Telos, and are you going after kind of a market niche, or what's kind of your target market in order to be able to stand out?
Yeah, great question, Matt. Thank you. I'm really glad that people have warmed up to sidechains. Very thankful for that, and I felt that would actually happen. I felt if we just kind of stayed true to what we were doing and did the work, that people would respond to that. But it's also due to the fact that there are more, people are hearing good things, about Warbly and Creatos and all these other people who are launching sidechains as well, right? So I think it's a team effort there. And also, people in the know always understood that this was the plan, right? To have multiple chains. Right, so like a year from today, I'm going to bet you that we could come back and do this again, and that you and I could sit down and we could pretty easily list 30 sidechains just of note, right, of EOS. And you're saying hundreds, and I will not disagree with hundreds. I think in 3 or 4 years, right, there may very well be more than 100, and we might not be able to list them all, right, because they're going to be like, one's going to register organic foods, and another is going to track, mayoral votes in Ecuador, and, one's going to be like the car registry in Lithuania and stuff, and one is going to be like biological penguins in Antarctica or something like that. Like these, they're just so useful that they're going to be everywhere, right? So Telos is actually trying to be a bigger general purpose DPoS blockchain that's for developers to release apps on. Very similar to EOS itself. I don't know what niche will be. I think we're going for general. I think the market will actually tell us that. I mean, if they can respond to a lot of things, right? They could respond to the fact that we are going to have much more compliance and sort of GRC stuff going in than EOS seems to be planning and maybe they'll respond to that. Maybe they'll just respond to the fact that we're cheaper. Maybe people will respond to the tokenomics of the voting. I kind of think I used to say that maybe EOS will be the Lexus and Telos will be the Toyota Corolla. So it still gets you there in style. It still gets you there, and maybe not in as much style. There are times right now, though, when I look at it and I wonder if EOS might be a Jaguar that is awesome and gorgeous, but in the shop sometimes. We'll see. I don't know. Really the reality is we can have all the plans we want. We can have all the theories we want. The market will tell us, and they'll tell EOS and they'll tell everybody. But we are just trying to give people a really great tool for them to use as they see.
For sure. There must have been kind of an aha moment or some moment in time where you decided, like, this is it. I'm doing it. Like, you probably thought about it a lot before you actually pulled the trigger to create the project and bring the people together. What was that moment? What did that look like? Was it a conversation? Was it,
It was, so it came out about a couple of different things. So I told you I used to have a job designing games. And so game theory was very, I was always interested in that. I developed a couple games that were kind of based on commons style negotiations, and just always something I loved, trying to figure out how to get from the tragedy of commons to the success of the commons. I also happen to have a degree in East Asian languages and cultures, and I've lived and worked in Japan and China, and a number of places around Asia, speak some of the languages to varying degrees. And so I knew that the thinking there was different. Like, we're assuming, I was afraid that, so there's a Max Planck political thought called consensus theory, which is essentially applies to America, in that America works as a democracy because people generally have the same idea of what America is supposed to be. Right. And I think that can be applied to any kind of open democratic system. So the question came to my mind, in a common situation, does the EOS ecosystem actually have a consensus theory in those terms? And I think I was extremely hopeful, but concerned. And so when I saw things start to happen, I would say to people, because we were working on this, I would say to people, I think there's a chance that this could happen, and if that does, then that sort of starts a slippery slope. And so some of those things that I was thinking would happen in months or years were starting to happen in days or weeks. And I was really concerned that this is going to be with the potential that this could go the wrong way, and all the great things about it might get away from us because of some of the weaknesses. And so I just started writing, honestly, just for myself, just as that kind of, I think you're probably a writer too, and that sometimes you just get those ideas out by putting them on paper, and you don't know what you thought until you see what you wrote, right?
Jeez.
So I started that, and I would share that. It never intended to have this be a fork or anything other than, maybe a medium article here or there. But people started responding. I saw, I wrapped my mind around some potential at a white paper, and or what essentially was a white paper, and some people were really responding to it, and either wanting to get involved or wishing me well. Good luck with that. Of course. So that's kind of how I just, honestly, I'm so amazed by the potential of EOSIO that it would have just been a crime for this not to work. And I'm at a phase in my life where when I started saying, stop saying who's going to build this, and started saying, I think I maybe better try to build something small. That same thinking kind of comes into I could just sit around and watch the train wreck, or that pedestrian dodges the oncoming car, or maybe I could get in there and try to make something work. And this is my way of doing it. It's definitely not meant to derail EOS. I think that there's plenty, there's plenty of room for everybody, right? And that's my goal. So, but it was just like a bunch of ideas that came about.
It started with writing a single word on a white paper and kind of just steamrolled.
A lot of things start that way, don't they?
They really do. My God, they do. Yeah, it's funny you should say that. I guess if we were to, and I know simplicity is never easy when you're talking about a sidechain, but how does the voting differ? How does the voting structure of Telos kind of differ from the voting structure of EOS? What have you kind of changed there?
The voting? So the biggest change, I think, so the biggest change of voting actually is that you can vote for your arbitrators. I think that's the biggest thing we haven't talked about yet, but there's nothing's appointed, right? So anything that we're going to vote for, we may actually get to a point soon where we also are voting for the people who have merge capability on the GitHub for code. That's something we're working for, but you can vote for your arbitrators. They have to run just like a BP. I think that's kind of a big thing. One of the things that we're talking, I think you probably mean, is the inverse weighted voting. And what that is we're trying to, so here's a short version with inverse weighted voting. The fewer BPs you vote for, the less each vote is worth. You vote for 2, it's worth less than if you vote, each of those is worth less than if you vote for 30, right? It's trying to keep people from weighting it by voting for themselves. And so the advantage of that is that it expands voting, right? Because people feel that they have to look into it if they want their vote to count. And if it doesn't expand voting, it reduces the impact of people who choose not to be educated about the options, or who are just favoring a small number of affiliated VPs, right? And people don't have to spend their life, honestly, people don't have to spend their life voting. They just have to pick a proxy that they trust who will do a good job, right? If they don't want to do it themselves. So it's really to keep, and it's to apply a sort of a weight to people who are kind of playing by our stated rules a little bit more.
For sure. You're breaking up a little bit as we're coming through, just every once in a while. It's just typical Costa Rican Wi-Fi. I apologize, man. It tends to get like that a little bit, but we're still getting the message, and everything's really clear. So I guess the next question, you touched briefly on, you're going to cycle in BPs. So cycling in BPs for like a layman, why is that advantageous?
Okay, so BPs are running the network, right? And we've decided that we're going to have 21 BPs, and then we're going to have some number of standby BPs, right? But on EOS, nobody knows if those standby BPs actually work, right? They don't have to prove it. Like I could get anything that has 8 gigs of RAM and an internet connection, and I could throw Linux on it and Kleos and Nodios and all that, and use the producer plugin. And for all anyone could tell, that would be a BP. But it doesn't not do the job, right? So what we say is there's no point in having all those standbys if they can't do the job. And again, like if you look at this from a game theories mindset, we can't just or a trustless mindset. You can't just trust people, right? We got a great set of people right now. I'm sure everybody who's on the thing right now are going to do it, but we're thinking about like planning this ahead for the next 300 years, right? So there's going to come a time when there's an economic incentive for people to break the rules. So we're just saying, no, you have to be tested, right? So what we do is, it's really simple. It was not simple to do, but it's simple in concept, and now we've done it. So now in the rearview mirror, it's simple. But what we do is we create a scheduler, and we look at everybody, and we say, and we build a schedule where every 5 days, each of 30 BP standbys gets rotated in for 6 hours. And that means that it actually means also that the main VPs can pull their computers down for some time and use that to apply backups and things like that. That's not as big a problem for most VPs because they'll have multiple nodes, but they can do it anyway. So the main thing is that those standbys are tested, right? If you produce, then you're good. If you're not, then you're going to get dinged in your pay, and everyone's going to know it, right? That you can't do it, so you can't actually produce. I mean, the standbys are of no value unless they can just jump in at a moment's notice. The other thing that happens though is once you have a schedule where you can actually practice pulling people on and off, then pulling somebody off for non-producing becomes no big deal, right? Which is what it really should be, right? We're trying to build a robust, resilient network. It should not be one of these things where somebody doesn't produce and then we have to have 21 other people like have a meeting about it and what does it all mean and send it to an arbitrator. Just pull it down for 6 hours and then bring them back in when they're ready. That's how it should be. We should, and you know what? Unless it's happening to them, every day, don't make a big deal of it, right? Just computers go down, right? We should accept that and embrace it and just build a system that allows that. So, and that's what it does. So the system's going to work. And then further, you never get to a point where 3 or 4 or 5 are down and you're risking having to pause the network because you pulled them out in 30 minutes, right? You didn't have to have like a 24-hour window where more people can go down. Because what if there's another Icelandic volcano or something like that, and there's big blackouts across some areas, or right now on EOS, one earthquake in Shenzhen is going to take up 3/4 of the network. Tell me I'm wrong. Look at the map.
Okay, we're gonna move on, my friend. I talked to you about the fact that you guys are kind of going to launch with a few things prepared. One of which is going to be arbitration. You're kind of in a position where you got to kick back, watch and participate in the EOS launch, and then make some moves based on some of the lessons learned. What are some of those lessons? What are some of the things that you've pulled away from the launch? Like, we both know I'm a huge EOS fan, and the EOS launch was fantastic, but there clearly were some lessons in the way that maybe you could maneuver to be able to make things a little bit cleaner, a little bit quicker. What are some of those lessons?
Okay, yeah, I mean, we're absolutely standing on the shoulders of giants here. Or going to school off EOS or whatever. We're no denying those things. We would be, at the same time, we'd be fools not to look at those things and try and fix them if you get a do-over, right? And which we do. So we're lucky with that. We are going to have arbitration. We're going to have a lot of things. We're going to have ratification. We have a lot of these things right off the bat, so that so the system works as planned, right, and as promised. So I think we'd be foolish not to. So yeah, having a full system is one of the things that's gonna that we're gonna have. So we're gonna have every piece like arbitration. We're gonna have full governance. We're gonna have people actually vote for arbitrators, like I said, because it gives more legitimacy. And so in order to do that, like backing off all these things, if you're gonna vote for your arbitrators, then we have to back up. We have to set up a system of rules that's different than what on the internet, and we have to actually find people who are willing to do that and looking to do that. We're actually going. I know that EOS right now is looking for people with a lot of background in blockchain technology, and we're actually trying to reach out to attorneys and arbitrators and retired judges and clerks and people like that who have actually legal experience, and then pair them with any kind of technical resources they need. Because I think it's, for us, we've got a lot of technical people who can answer questions, but we're not legal minds. So that's thing we're trying to bring in.
Sure. Okay, my next question is, I love dApps, love a lot of the stuff that's going on in EOS.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point, is dApps.
Yeah, exactly. I think people expected, EOS to just explode with dApps. Okay, the software is there. now we have thousands of dApps, let's go. But it's obviously it's a lot slower than that. You know, people have got to learn, they've got to build the projects. How would you say that building a dApp on Telos rather is different than building one on main chain?
Well, in almost every way, it's the same. In all real programmatic ways, it's the same. We are committed to making sure that any dApp built for Telos is going to also run on EOS and vice versa, and that's super important, right? So that's the thing that allows the dApp developers to go and say, you know what, we're gonna go with the EOS Telos system because we can program the same thing, and then we can pick which one to deploy on based at the end when we see how, you know, in 3 months from now, when we see how many users they actually have and what the deployment costs and things like that. We don't have to commit to something like we would if we were going to start building for Tron or Cardano or anything like that, right? We have two choices. We have two options, and maybe soon we'll have, I don't know, right? So that's important. We are doing, one thing that we're doing is not forcing dApp developers to open source their code, right? On EOS, it's not in the next proposed constitution, but it is in the current constitution that every contract has to be open source. And the funny thing is, it's not, you know, people think that's necessary. It's actually not necessary, because you actually kick out a WASM file, which is not human readable anyway, right? That's not a CP. You write a CPP, a C++ file, but you kick out a file that's executable, so people can't read that whether it's open source or not. And then your recording contract, your human language contract terms are in the ABI file, the application binary interface file, which you can exist on an open source or proprietary basis. So as a developer myself, I know it's very it gives you pause to say, okay, we're gonna invest 20 man months in building this app or more, right? And we're gonna have like 4 people work on this dApp for 4 months, right? And then that's bad math, 5 months. So and then once we've deployed it, we must make it open source. So therefore, anyone else can just grab our thing, put a different graphic on the front, and go head to head with us. That is the way it currently is in EOS. I think that actually discourages development, right? I mean, actually, one of the strengths of EOSIO is that, unlike Solidity, you don't have to put everything on. You don't have to put your full contract code out there, right? So this is, and I totally understand people who say I only want to use open source code, and every program will most likely will have to identify itself as open source or proprietary code in the Ricardian contracts. But so people can vote with their dollars or their Telos who they want to support. But I think being able to have proprietary dApps is a big plus against any other blockchain, and so I think it will attract developers.
You understand the logic of that. I really do. I guess the next question that I wanted to ask you was, I know you have a ton of supporters, right? I know you have a lot, but let's be real here. Lots of critics in the space. I know that you've dealt with some criticism, particularly stemming from people just starting to be able to realize that sidechains are okay, and that they're not out to take over or anything like that. It's just another alternative, and ultimately they can work in synchronicity. I guess what I'm asking right now is there ever been a circumstance where maybe somebody's kind of unloaded on you, and you've been able to get past the means of the delivery of the message to look into the content of the message and learn something or change something? How do you deal with criticism, I guess, is what I'm trying to ask.
Well, I mentioned I used to work in television, so this isn't criticism. I'm fine with it. In fact, I totally encourage people to be skeptical about any new crypto project. I mean, that's the appropriate response, really. So when that bounces, first hearing about it and saying, "Oh, come on, prove it to us," I I think they're right to say that, and I think what we have to do is just be transparent and keep delivering stuff of value. I mean, as each week we put out a weekly report that has a lot of bullet points of real things that they can verify happening, and as we each week have a totally open recorded call, live streamed usually, that anyone can watch, and as we build our GitHub repository, I mean, that kind of transparency and progress is how you win people over. People have definitely brought up points that I haven't thought of. Like, honestly, the thing is, a white paper, it is a nucleus of an idea or a movement. It's not a holy text, right? And this one by far is not holy text. Maybe the first one, the Bitcoin one, was probably kind of a holy text. But short of that, this is not meant to be so when I used to direct films and TV projects, you work with all these creative people, and they're constantly bringing you ideas. And the great thing about it is, if you just listen and take their ideas, when they turn out to be great, people usually give you all the credit for it. So I am open. I welcome new ideas, and like, the best idea should win, right? And again, I want to be really clear. I have no special authority in Telos whatsoever. I have a vote. There's a lot of people who work in the room with me or work closely with me in groups, and I have a sort of a soft power to explain my vision and hopefully win them over. But there's a lot of people here who have won me over. Right? And if that wasn't happening, then that would be a big mistake. Then I shouldn't be doing this. Because the alternative is that there are good ideas on the table that aren't happening just because they didn't come from me. And I don't respect people like that. And I would hate to be thought of as one of those people. And I would even hate more to be one of those people. So I'm just trying to keep everyone going. Like I said, we don't really have a founder. This one doesn't need a founder, right? Maybe some of them need a founder. But I often wonder, like, maybe one of the reasons that Bitcoin is so strong is that we don't have to listen to the founder's tweets every day. There's a possibility of that, and entertain the idea anyway.
For sure. All right, we're going to move on a little bit. I guess my next question for you was more of kind of a life question. I always tell people, in my own personal view, that motivation is fleeting. And in this industry, you need a lot of motivation. And when somebody asks me, what motivates you, I say, I'm only motivated sometimes. And when I am, I just ride the wave. How do you find motivation, and how would you kind of describe your work-life balance at this point, and how do you maintain that motivation?
Well, I'm a lot older than you, Matt, as the HD video can clearly show. So here's the thing. I've seen this movie before. And big spoiler alert, the way it ends is that big corporations get their hands on all the technology that was supposed to make our lives better, unless we stop them from doing that, right? And so I was there for the web explosion. I was there for mobile. And I watched each of those things be kind of a promise of P2P power that didn't happen, that got usurped. And I see the groundwork for that happening in blockchain. And I would honestly hate to have been warned twice about that, lived through the experience of seeing that, and then, miss the chance to maybe have some influence on that. I think there's some economic problems in the world that don't end well unless we can have some kind of bloodless coup, right? Soft, slow motion, slow revolution that doesn't kill anybody, but instead actually gives power to everyday people in a non-violent way. I want to underscore that, and possibly not even in a regime change sort of way, but in a way where power actually is delivered to people. And I think personally that blockchain is maybe our last best hope for that. And so that drives me, because I would love to give my kids and everyone's kids and that opportunity. I really believe that somewhere in the world there's the next Mozart or Yo-Yo Ma or Shakespeare or whatever, and this poor kid could be anything, and he or she is in some kind of place where there's no economic possibility or there's no political possibility, and we're just, the rest of us just aren't going to get the benefit of all that that person could be. And man, I think we need that person. I think we need to make sure that kid who's going to figure out some of our carbon problems and things like that, I think that person needs to get every chance he or she can get. And the one little area of it that I can maybe affect something is by giving a little extra power to people on using blockchain. So that's where my motivation.
I love it. That's really cool. And that's one of the things that attracted me to EOS and keeps me there as well. There's a lot of socially conscious people who are doing some really, really cool things. And man, we're just getting warmed up. So that's kind of what keeps me in the space.
Yeah.
Next question is, and just in case anybody missed this, who gets a piece of the project? Like, how does it work, right? If you're a Genesis holder, you're going to get some tokens. How does that kind of work? And when is the key going to be in the ignition and it's ready to turn on? What's kind of the plan right now?
Yeah, great question. Okay, so we are using the Genesis snapshot. There's some really good reasons for that, and one of them is it's the best chance we have to have all the EOS holders who are on exchanges be able to participate, because we know that they took the Genesis snapshot, and we don't know about any other date. Also, it protects people from getting around our protections. Like if we were to say, okay, well, we're going to do it on September 1st, then all the people would split out their accounts so they're all 40,000. It would undermine the rationale. Also, I really, but we did choose this. We could have chosen anything, right? We could have chosen the current Ethereum. We could have done anything. We chose EOS. We chose the EOS snapshot because we want to support the people. We want to reward the people who supported EOS. I think ultimately that's the most legitimate way to do it. I know, sadly, we are leaving behind some people who've come to it later and who really believe in it, and we are sad to have to miss them, but any snapshot we chose would miss who we'd love to have engaged. So we're doing that. We are, as I mentioned, we're capping, which touches only 0.67% of all accounts, which is less than 1,100 accounts. So then additionally, we are creating two groups of tokens. One is a 1 million token pool for community to go. So if you really want to get some Telos, go out. We've announced this on our telosfoundation.io/rewards. There's a video and some rules and stuff like that. But basically, it's a bounty type program where people can make videos or tweet or do community management or hold meetups or write a tutorial or anything like that, and we will get like a really generous, like almost over generous amount of Telos. So some people are going to do really well that way. And then the currently 75 contributors, which we expect to be over 100 by the time we actually launch, who are coming in and doing meetings and stuff like that, and on working groups and either writing code or contacting DApps and trying to onboard them, or contacting changes and trying to going through that onboarding process, or translating things into, I think we have 10 languages now. All those many necessary functions. Those people are all going to be rewarded using a really great system that I think is going to be really beneficial going forward. It's based on the BitShares slicing pie model, and we really updated it because it's really legit. It's super legit, and we brought in two so far professional expert compensation people to really just kind of nail this down. We have Rob Consdorf at EOS Detroit has written a great front end, which my hope is going to go on Telos blockchain as soon as it's available, and that all our worker proposal systems that are big will use this. By the way, we are going to start with worker proposal systems. I think that's actually super important. I know they're talking about that, removing that. I think that's the democracy, and of course I've been involved with Dash and Pivx and stuff like that, and that's been one of their one of the great strengths is their ability to promote and improve their blockchain through worker proposals. So I'm a big proponent of that. That's out now. You can look at our approach for that, and as well as our approach for ratify amend. Anyway, so those people are going to share. All those contributors are going to share 6 million, which all in is less than 1.8% of the projected total token supply, which I think you can look across. And for a project that had no ICO, the people are working approximately 5+ man years. It might be up to like 7 man years of total combined work on this in the probably 5 months it will take from very inception with like me starting to type an idea down and talking to people to your Telos is, the network is running. That's probably going to be how much it is. I think that's, we all think it's reasonable. We certainly listened to the community when they were talking about like the previous approach, which is a great example of something that I thought was going to be good. And then the community said, no, this will be better. And I was like, you're right. That will be better. Let's do that. So anyway, that's how people get involved. And if you want to get that, if you want to get Telos, if you want to start having Telos and you weren't part of it, there's a pretty easy way to do it. Just, get on YouTube and tweet and all those things. It's pretty low bar to get, a nice chunk of what could be a really valuable token.
Cool. I'll make sure that I link to everything in my notes. So, my pleasure. I want to talk to you about one thing before we move on to some rapid fire questions, and then I'll let you do what you got to do. Okay, so IBC, right? Inter-blockchain communication. You guys are working on this. I think there was kind of some people who were like, Telos doesn't want to connect to anybody, and I know that that's not true. I know that you squashed that, and I know it's kind of the opposite. Let's talk about IBC. Where are you? What are your thoughts on it, and what's the plans for the future?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that we are super pro mixed chains. Like when the idea of the EOS Alliance came around, I was like I was in the cover and like, wait, forget the EOS Alliance. Let's have the EOSIO Alliance, where EOS, Telos, Warbly, Ono, everybody has like mixes their. We all get together and do hackathons and government and legal and stuff like that. That helps, and advertising helps everyone because we have so many shared interests. So that is totally not true about us being against the other chains. So the reality is that actually, just due to really good luck of timing, I think that Telos is what's going to make IBC work. So I know we're working on it very hard, and it's just like this conjunction of we have a whole new blockchain, that we could do anything with, within reason, that people support. And we are already doing a lot of coding work, right? So some blockchains change very little. We're changing a lot. So that's important. And then, as I was telling you before, like it's actually really important to us to be able to do this because say we don't get the level of exchange participation that we want right away. Exchanges have different reasons that they are taking coins on, and they have their own rationale. And what we are not going to be able to go ahead until we launch. There is no coin, right? So there may be a period where there's less exchange activity than we'd like. Well, the nice thing is if we can get some version of IBC going, then we have a way for people who are working really hard to make this work, to transfer value onto and off of the network. And so we're huge recipients of that, right? And we want to do that for the people who are winning these bounty things, and the people who are the smaller VPs who maybe are going to have to have worked really hard or translators or whatever, people who've worked really hard and then need to, just because they've worked for free for so long, need to get some value out of that. We're trying to create every situation where we can. So we're going to do it. And I don't know exactly how we're going to do it, not because I don't know how we're going to do it, but because we're trying a number of different approaches and they're each yielding different results. And most of them are mutually exclusive, but sometimes you kind of like nudge here and it opens up a gap and you go, oh, we could do that with this one even. We're looking at things like Plasma. We're looking at Merkle proofs. We're looking at multiple token registries, which is really exciting for us. There's a lot of things. We're actually, one of the things I wanted to talk about was we've actually created a standard that's much better than the EOSIO.token standard. It's much closer to an ERC20 or 777 standard on Ethereum. It has I think it has 7 actions as opposed to just 3 actions for the EOSIO.token, and they're really well thought out. It's called a tip 5. It's the Telos improvement. Works just as well on EOS, and we've actually deployed the very first one on EOS, and it's called the DPoS token, DPoS, and the contract, if anyone wants to go to it, is DPoS token IBC, and this is a valueless token. We just spent the money to get it out there because it provides a way for us to start looking at sending tokens with a real token, sending tokens across different networks. And we have similar ones on our blockchain, on our testnet. But we thought, so anybody who wants these, you just send us it's a way to start learning how to use the tip 5 token method. And they're free. I'm sending them around. Let's send these things around. You guys can get them in your wallet right there. If you just go to that contract, you'll see all the methods. You'll see different ways to print them. We'll send them off to you, and we have things coming up down the road that are ways that we are going to use this token to try to actually jump across to BitShares and try and jump across to the Telos testnet and things like that. So the idea that we're not serious about this must be dispelled, because the opposite is true. We're going to make this happen because it's exciting, and it's going to be a win for everyone. It's going to be a huge win. Imagine. So you and I were talking about this before. So let me just kind of share one thing we were talking about, which is, so in this 100 blockchain world, right? Not every one of those smaller EOSIO tokens is going to be able to get onto big exchanges, right? It's just not going to happen because they have listing fees, they're cautious, things like that. So how then are they going to do? They'll have dexes to go between the name token and the tokens, contracts listed on that chain. But how are they going to send value on and off the network, right? It's a very important question. Well, I'm thinking that DPoS token lets us actually make this happen, and we can figure it out, and then we can issue real tokens that have value and then can create that transfer value. So we're very dedicated to the idea, and we're working hard on it.
My friend, and that's one of the things that kind of piqued my interest. So I wish you nothing but the best with that, and I look forward to. You can be sure I'll be following you along.
We all win. We all win. If we do that, we all win, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. No, I think it's great. I think it's cool. I think it's neat that you're so passionate about it, and I want to see you win, as do a lot of other people as well. I want to shoot off just a couple of rapid fire questions before we close this thing off. And just, I like to do these just kind of something different, because it gives people a little bit of an impression about who Douglas Horn is. First one is going to be experiences, people, or things, in order of priority to you, and why.
Experiences or things?
Yeah, or experiences, things, or people.
Oh, people. Yes. Totally people, right? So number 1 is people. Yep. Number 2, right by it, is experiences, because actually, most of the things you do with people are experiences, and then way down is things. If you ever have to manage the disposition of the possessions of a loved one or other people after they are gone, it completely changes your ideas about the value of possessions, right? They say that the things we own tend to own us. So
that's awesome. I love it. That's a great answer. And I unfortunately have been through that. And I never really would have kind of thought about it like that, but that's a great analogy. All right. Next one is, I always ask this, but favorite book, or at least a book that you would recommend that everybody reads.
Oh, that's the toughest one so far. That's the toughest question, Matt. Sun Also Rises, Huckleberry Finn, To Kill a Mockingbird. No one in crypto should not have read Cryptonomicon. Okay. Neil Stephenson here in Seattle. Good Omens by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett. And Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency by Douglas Adams. That's my one book, like just all mashed together.
I love Douglas Adams, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, How to Throw Yourself at the Ground and Miss. I love that book. But
Hitchhiker's Guide is my favorite 4-book trilogy.
Yeah, it's incredible. He did a really good job with it. It captivated my imagination. I don't think the video did it justice, but I love the books. Yeah. Okay, another couple more, and then I'll let you go and get on with your life here. Most impactful experience in life to date?
Being a father and being married for 24 years to the same awesome girl.
That's awesome, man. I love it. I guess that's kind of like the last question. We've talked. How do
you beat that one? I can only screw it up from there. So.
Douglas, we've talked for a long time, and it's really been a pleasure. And I want to thank you for sitting down and spending some time with me today. I'm definitely going to be following the project as it goes along. I look forward to hopefully talking to you again sometime. And
anytime, man.
You have a ton of people watching. I'm going to post all the links for absolutely everything below. And I wish you nothing but the best. And I look forward to seeing how everything unfolds.
Thank you so much, Matt. I'm really excited to have had this opportunity. Great questions, the best questions, really. Can't wait to come back. Why don't we'll make a date. We'll come back in a year and we'll do a catch up, or hopefully sooner too. But we'll see where we are. It'll be just because it'll be mind blowing, man. Just because it'd be cool to watch those two back to back.
For sure. I'll stay in touch in the meantime, and I'm sure that we'll have you on again before then. But please. You, sir, have a fantastic night. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and I look forward to seeing what's next for the project.
Thanks, Matt. I appreciate it.
All right. All the best. I'll see you soon.
Bye.